Welcome back, csc230, to part 2 of our EX6 nav buttons. And we just have a little bit to do here. We're going to finish up and give some styling so that we have a top navigation and a bottom navigation. This is what we want to get, and this is what we have so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to style, here's our HTML, we're going to style our nav top first. We're going to focus on the top navigation, then we'll do the side. So we want to focus on, we have an HTML element called nav, and that has an ID of top, so we're going to target that. We're just going to make it go across the page, put a little padding on it, and so that our buttons kind of float inside of that. So we're going to give some styles to that, and I'll go to my CSS and I'll start here, and I'll just call it nav and then # top. And without a space, that means that's nav with the ID name top, and I'll give that a style, and I'll just say width. I'll just make it 100% so it goes across our browser window. I'll give it a background color. Here's background color. And I'll go over to my color picker and I'll use something light, kind of lighter than we have. I'll just use something here of this teal color. You could use different colors, you don't have to use teal. But I'll go here and paste this in here and make sure I put my semicolon. And now I have background color, and I'll also put a padding kind of all around. So I'll just do 1em. That should be around 16 pixels or whatever our default is. And I think that's all I'll need with nav, just the nav top. Then we're going to target basically the line items, because we're going to make them in line. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do nav top, and I'm going to do li. That's the line item inside nav top. And I'm just going to say display inline, which should put it on one line, which should put them across. And we might even, I'll do it right now, I'm going to do margin right. Now there's other ways to do this, but I'll do margin right, and I'll just do 1em just to put space on the right side. That'll create separations between these. So let me save this, and let's just see what we got. And that's kind of not bad. It's a little lighter than everything's a little lighter than my original sample, but that's okay. That looks fine. And notice that these are created, we didn't put a width on here, but the words are almost the same width, so they're a little bit different. Now if we wanted to center all this stuff, we could go up here and do that in nav top. This nav top could basically get a text-align center, and that'll center all the content inside that element will be centered. It won't center the text necessarily within its, we already did that. We center align the text inside the button itself, but this will center all those buttons inside the nav element. So when we go here, it should look like that. Now if we wanted to apply a width, we could apply a width to the buttons itself, to all the buttons. We could actually do that up here. We could apply a width, but I think for right now, I'll just let that go. And then maybe we'll do, I'll make this, remember this is the top and bottom, and we said to try and do it double. Maybe I'll do it a little more, like 1.2. That'll put a little more padding on the left and right, and maybe even 1.3, something like that. And you can see that gives a little more space. That's the padding, the 1.3em. Here's the 0.4em. So however you want to do that, you could certainly make it bigger, or we can make the text bigger. I have this font size 1.2em. I can make it 1.3em. And one thing that'll make it easier, I'll do this to the global one. I'll actually do a font family. And here's font family, and I'll do Calibri, and that way it just looks a little better. And plus the sans serif shows up a little bit bigger. So that's my nav top. That actually looks pretty good. If I resize this, you can see it kind of resizes with it. So that looks pretty good. So we could put a drop shadow on that if we wanted. I could make these buttons a little bit darker. If I didn't like the color of the buttons, I can make them little, but we'll do a hover that's darker. So that's all I think I need with my nav top. Not sure if I need anything. Oh, we have to do the hover. So let me do the hover, nav top. I'll do a hover, and I could do this. I could take care of both of them at once. I could do nav side, and that targets both of them. That targets the hover for the top, and it targets the hover for the side. And all we're going to do, I'll just wipe this out, and I'll just copy this. We're going to put a background color. That way they'll be consistent, if you want them consistent. And I think I used something in the middle. Now maybe I use something darker here. I'll copy this. And this will be the background color when we hover over it. And this should be for both of them. So if I save it, even before I do anything to the side, I'll go over here. You can see I could hover over these, and they get that, and I could hover over these. The only thing I might make my buttons a little darker. They're a little light, but that's okay. All right, so we have that taken care of. Now we're almost done. I'm just going to copy all of this. And I'll call this Nav Side. Now I don't have to copy this because this actually took care of both of them. In fact, that's something that could almost be in global. This thing is kind of a global because it targets two of them, but I'll just let that go for now. And now this is going to be Nav Side, and this is going to be Nav Side because we already gave them those names. And the width is not going to be 100%. Maybe put it like, I'm going to put it like 25 for now. Yeah, there's like 25%. Maybe I'll even make it smaller. I'll make it 20. And that's about the width I want. We'll go with that. Now they're getting jumbled around because we have them in line. We're going to get rid of this in line. And you could do block. Block is the opposite, so you could just do this, even though block is default. But if you just do block, then you know it's different. So the nav side, the LIs will be blocked. That'll stack them on each other. We don't need the margin on the right, but maybe I'll do margin on the bottom, just to give them separation so that when they stack on each other, we'll have some space. So let me save that. And that's kind of what I want. I do not want them centered. So I'll get rid of this text align centered. If I get rid of it, it'll just default to left. Maybe I'll go a little smaller here. I'll see what 15% looks like. And again, that would affect the page. So you could just put a certain width there. You don't have to put percent. You don't always have to do that. You know, you could put 300 pixels. I'm not sure what that looks like, but let's just take a look. That's too wide, so let's try 200. That looks okay. And we could even put a margin left if we wanted more space or whatever we need to do. If we wanted to give width to these buttons, maybe these buttons would look better with a width, so they look kind of odd, kind of all, kind of odd sizes here. Even though the words are kind of similar, what we could do, instead of trying to like target the LIs, what we'll do is we'll just make a new class, and we're going to call it btn-side. And that means it's almost going to be a child sort of button. So, and we're giving it that name. We could just call it side, but we're going to call it button side. And what we'll do is we're going to say, okay, it's going to be button, but on the side, and it's going to have a width. And we'll just put like, I don't know, like 150px to start, just to see what it looks like. Now, nothing will happen yet because we didn't apply it. But if we go to our HTML, an easy way to apply it is just go to side and we just do a space and we do btn. We don't put a dot because we're applying the class, or we're naming the class side. So it's button, the first class it gets is button, and then the additional class it gets is button side. So I could copy this and just kind of paste it, and that applies that additional class button side, and I just gave it a name that kind of was kind of an appendage of the original button. That's why I did that. And now you can see that's a little too wide. Buttons are a little too wide there. But I'll save this so that it saves that I applied this class. So I'll make sure I save my index. I'll go back here and maybe I'll just put 100 and see how that looks. And that looks a little better. And that's okay. You could certainly mess with it more, but that's all I really want right now. This is actually done. So this is your EX6. You're going to have a nav top with a background color that stretches across the page. You're going to have 4 buttons that hover when you mouse over them, and they're white. And these will be the same over here. If you wanted to change anything, if you wanted to change the colors of these buttons, you could do that because we now have a class here. So you could make these buttons a little bit different. Now they're going to share the same hover because we did that. If you wanted to bring if you wanted the hover to be different, you'd probably cut this out of here and put it down here. But now since we have a separate class, if you wanted to do anything different other than just the width, you could do that. And again, I said we could build in the width into here if we wanted to. If you thought these things should have the same width, we could have built a width into there as well. But the new width of the class will override that. So that looks okay. We have some, again, this is the margin bottom, creating that space if you needed to spread them out more. you know, you could do that. That's the nav side margin bottom 1M. If you wanted to do 1.5M or something, you could see that spreads them out just a little bit more depending on how many buttons you have. But just wanted to do that quick little kind of tutorial of buttons that go across the top, buttons that go across the sides. And if we have time, we'll try to show buttons that actually stay here when you scroll, so that if you scroll down, the buttons actually stay at the top. So we might do that with this if I get a chance to do that. But this is, again, EX6 nav buttons. And again, you're creating this all from scratch. You're creating the folder, you're creating the EX6 folder, you're creating the 2 files, and you're typing it all in yourself, hopefully using Emmet, which will make it a lot quicker if you just kind of watch what I do in these videos. So make sure you save everything and make sure you preview everything and everything looks okay, and you're done.